Hello, hello, hello. Directional, so it'll just pick you up even from back here. So it'll pick up both of you from there.
Have we started the meeting yet?
No, Don. We're probably about 2-3 minutes away. People went yeah. How do I say this properly? People went out to meet their needs. Thanks, Gath.
Okay. I just want to know whether I lost connection or not, so that's okay.
So I'm going to welcome everybody to the Sunrise School Division Board of Trustees meeting for October the 4th. My name is Paul Magna. I'm the chair. I'm going to call our meeting to order. It's great that we have public here, so I think that before we go into O Canada, I would like to make all of us to make some introductions ourselves, and to the million people that are watching live tonight. How about if we go around the room as trustees and introduce ourselves, then we'll go to our staff, and then people from that are joining us can introduce themselves as well. So I'm going to start with the man on my right.
I had to think about my directions there for a second. My name is Jarrett Pachkowski. I am trustee in Ward 6 currently. Did not seek re-election, so I will not be returning to the board. And since I have the floor on a public platform here, I do want to recognize each one of you around the table, including our senior admin team. It's been my absolute pleasure to be on the board the last 4 years. Goes without saying, the 4 years were challenging. We had a lot of curveballs thrown our way, but I think as a group we handled it fairly well. And yeah, I want to thank all of you for the last 4 years. It's been a great experience for me, and I really appreciate it. So thank you.
I'm Robin Harris. I'm the trustee for Ward 2, and I'm watching us on millions of other people, and we're a grand total of 3 at the moment. Woo!
And Robin, you are returning for Ward 6 in the new term. I'm Diane Rowland. I'm with Dugald, Ward 3, and I'm running for re-election, so I may or may not be here next month. And thank you for coming out tonight. It's nice to have public. Welcome back.
Russ Reed, Ward 8, which is Lac the Bonnie, and I'll be back next term.
Diane Duma, exiting Ward 4 trustee, passing on the torch to the future Oakbank trustee. We're going to have 2 of them in there, so yeah, that's it.
Karen Inslee, Ward 4 trustee for Oakbank, along with Diane, and I'm running for re-election.
Ward 5, Art Berry, trustee for Beaudesert, and I'm not seeking re-election, so good luck to whoever the new candidate is.
Don, I'm going to give you the chance to introduce yourself.
I'm Don Nickel, the trustee from Whitemouth Reynolds area, and I'm running for re-election.
And just so the people know, Don is joining us by phone. Thanks, Don. And I'm going to start with Kath.
Hi, I'm Kathy Timko. I'm the superintendent of Sunrise, proud superintendent of Sunrise School Division.
I'm Jody Thiessen. I'm the secretary treasurer here at the school division.
Lars Spielberg, assistant superintendent of learning and student services. I listen to what Kathy does.
Stacy Bonato. I am the executive assistant to Jody and the board.
So in the room we have, there's 5 people that have joined us. I want to let you guys introduce yourselves. Go ahead.
I'm Shauna Rogers. I'm the principal of Oakbank Elementary School.
And I'm Shannon Newstater, the assistant principal of Oakbank Elementary School.
It's probably going to be hard because you don't have a microphone, but how about if you just tell us who you are, and then I'll echo it as well. So if you didn't hear that, Laura Skiba is with the STA. She's with STA. She's the chair of the PD. And we have Serena Kloss, the president of the Sunrise Teachers Association. So we have Evelyn DePiro. She is a parent of children that are in Oakbank Elementary. So she's got children in all 3 schools, and she is running for a trustee in the Oakbank area. So thanks. I just wanted to go ahead and do that because it's great that we have people that are with us. I do need to apologize with a tire. I just got off the ice coaching, so when I stand up and you're going to take a look at me, you're going to say, oh my gosh, what the heck are you doing? But I just came from hockey. So we have Okanda from Oakbank Elementary. Please stand if you can do so. You know, that puts a smile to my face because of listening to the kids play the recorder from your school. It's great to go ahead and hear, because the transition from recorder to the stuff that the kids in the Oak Bank area, the music, what they put out, and again, Diane and Karen and I went to the summer festival that they had, and yeah, you know what, it's awesome. But that's awesome. It was really good to hear. So thanks very much from the Oak Bank Elementary program. We have a treaty acknowledgement, and we'd ask Trustee Inslee to read out our treaty acknowledgement, please.
We acknowledge the traditional land upon which Sunrise School Division resides as Treaty 1 territory. We honour our partnership with Canada's Original Peoples and respect the gifts of Indigenous history, culture and language. We commit to moving forward in partnership with our communities in a spirit of collaboration and reconciliation.
Thanks, Karen. Appreciate it. 2.1 is the adoption of the agenda. Be it resolved that the board approve the agenda. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Trustee Pachakowski and seconded by Trustee Barry. Questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. And it passes 9-0. Thank you for doing that. Chair's comments, a reminder that for the million people that are watching online is to send all their questions to jody.thiessen@sunrisesd.ca. And again, of course, you can also come here live and go ahead and ask questions certainly to us. The name and address of the sender to be included in the email for us, please. We also have share a story. And are there trustees that would like to share a story certainly over the past couple of weeks as to things that are going on? Floor is open. Trustees? Trustee Duma?
Just an email that we received from the high school regarding their football league, and I guess this was received after the last board meeting, that they won, the SCI football team won, and after the win, the Canada Football Chat ranked SCI in the top 10 small school football programs nationally. So that was really cool news.
You know, it is a really big deal. You know what, for us to get recognized, you know, nationally, you know, for a small program that probably has been 2-3 years in the running about going, and so the crew that's behind it, you're absolutely right, Trustee Duma, it is a really big deal, so it's great to see. If you get a chance to get out to some of their games, the games are on their website, it is pretty spectacular, so kudos. Anyone else? Trustee Inslee?
I just had to check the minutes from the last meeting to make sure I'm not repeating myself, but I called in to see Kevin at SCI and the staff now that they're back, and Diane met me at the school as well, and considering what it looked like when we went a few weeks previous and them being ready, there's still a lot of work to do, but like they've pulled the stops out and made it work, and they've worked really, really hard, so SCI is looking good.
Thanks, Karen, and a reminder, certainly we had Derek Ryback, our maintenance manager, share last week, certainly a lot of the work that was done, and I need to reiterate, we got somewhere around, how many $1 million from the province?
Yeah, it's quite a bit over $12 million this past year.
So I think we got $12 million from the province when they came to us and said, hey, you know what, we can do some things for your buildings. The option was for us to say, nah, let's not go ahead and do that because it's not going to be ready for September, or go ahead and do it and deal with it as we're going through. And yeah, Karen, it was great that the staff certainly, and Derek talked about where our schools are, and some are getting windows and some windows are a little bit later, but it is pretty special. And for us to turn around and say, nah, we don't want the $12 million, you know what, you don't turn down those things too often. And so kudos to you're right, Karen, kudos to all the staff, certainly, and custodians in particular, you know what, with the work that they're doing about keeping our buildings in the shapes that they are. So thanks very much. Thanks for mentioning that. Anyone else? Trustee Pachakowski?
I'm going to take a couple more minutes of everybody's time. Earlier I thanked the people around the table, but you know, it goes without saying, and you know, last but not least is I just want to thank, as an outgoing trustee, want to thank everybody in our system. So there are so many people that I've had the pleasure of getting to meet over my course, over the term as a trustee. And I mean, the work that we do in our schools is fundamental to, you know, our communities and the future of our communities. And I just want to thank our, I hope I don't miss anybody here, but everybody in our schools, so great from the principals, our teachers, our EAs, our custodial staff, our librarians, technicians, our secretaries, out at transportation, our bus drivers, our mechanics, our supervisors in the maintenance department, our office staff, our finance staff, our HR staff. There's so many moving parts to a school division, and just really, really proud of the people in Sunrise. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Jarrett. Well said. Trustee Harris?
At the beginning of each of our trustee meetings for the last several years, I'm sure, we read a treaty acknowledgement. Last Friday was Truth and Reconciliation Day across Canada, and I understand the schools did a lot of work working up to that last week. I'd like to point out, as a stamp collector, that Canada Post issued last Thursday a set of 4 stamps for Truth and Reconciliation. The first time they've done that, and it's supposed to be an annual event. I recall several years ago being invited to speak and give a talk at a stamp club in one of our schools, an elementary school. I think that's a great way to promote history and teaching amongst our students, and it's something that I would hope could be broadened to all our other schools. But certainly, Truth and Reconciliation is very, very important to all of us. Thank you.
So I want to put a plug into all of our schools and our million people that are out there. His name is Trustee Robin Harris, that will come out and present at schools to talk a little bit about stamps. No, kidding aside, Robin is good about going ahead and doing that, and is an avid stamp collector, and is getting me out to a stamp rollout for, there is a school in Scantlebury, and it's the Tommy Prince School, and Tommy Prince is getting a stamp. He's one of the 4 stamps that Robin has mentioned, and they're getting a stamp in their honor. Tommy Prince is getting a stamp in his honor, and there is a rollout at the Manitoba Human Rights Museum, and Robin's trying to get me out to it, so hopefully we can attend. But thanks, Robin, for that. Anyone else? Kath?
I also believe that...
Yes.
Go ahead, Don.
As you know, that Whitemoor School is getting their science lab renovated, so I'd like to really comment or give kudos to the science teachers that are able to teach their science course without a lab, because the lab won't be complete until December 31st. So a science teacher to be able to teach a science course without a lab is a challenging job, and I'm hoping they will be able to do a good job, and the students will still be able to know how to do experiments at the end of the day. If it's ready by December 31st, at least then they got 1 month they can do the lab, but it's a tremendous job that the teachers are doing when they can't use a lab. The other thing I want to mention is that Whitemoor School will having a Terry Fox barbecue on this coming Friday, so if you want good cooking, good hot dogs, I am cooking.
All right, so for the million people out there that go on out, because Trustee Nicoll is cooking at Whitemoor School, to go ahead. Thanks, Don, for that. No, well said. Kath?
So we've had a couple of published authors and groups of kids who've brought books to the table. I believe we've had Powerview School, I believe we've had Oakbank Elementary School, and we've had École Edward Trier School. So I wanted to bring the latest edition, which is a book of poetry from Lac du Bonny Senior School. And it says, "This year the stars aligned and a collective allegiance of creatives was born." So under the direction of Becky Reynolds, we have Coulter Zirk, Alicia Mackey, Maya Vieilleux, Lily Hodgson, Anya Hodges, and Courtney Urich, who have published a book. It is available for $10, and they are using the funds for school events, etc. So Lac du Bonny Senior, or contact me if you'd like to have a look at the copy. And congratulations to the Creative Allegiance.
You know, that's awesome, Kath. Can we make sure that those things get put onto our website, you know, so that we can celebrate those accomplishments on our website, doing that going forward? Thank you. Anyone else share a story? Okay. So we have a board delegation. Kath, I'm going to give you the opportunity to introduce the crew that's with us.
This is the Shanna and Shannon show. So Shanna Rogers is the principal of Oakbank Elementary, and her right-hand person is Shannon Newstatter, who is the assistant principal. And they are going to take you on a journey of what's going on at Oakbank Elementary School, and I will leave all the time to you guys.
Thank you. As Kathy said, as I said before, my name is Shanna. I have just started at Oakbank Elementary School. I'm proud to be a principal there. And so what we're going to talk to you about today is the things that have been accomplished in the last year, but also how we're going to take that and move forward into future years. So the first part is the report on things that have happened, and then Shannon and I will look at our next steps. So we did take a picture of our school. The Oakbank Pride there with paws talks about bridging culture and education. We do have the Ukrainian language program. If you flip to the next slide, please. And so in our school, our total staff, we have 40 teaching staff. That does include Shannon and myself. 8 EAs in our support staff. Total students is 559. And I've broken it up there between K to 2 and 3 to 5. Then I specify the students in the English-Ukrainian bilingual program. So 12 kindergarten this year, and then we have a 1-2 split with 20 students, a 2-3 with 19, and a 4-5 with 22. So we work really hard to have those students participate in all of the cultural activities that they can, and also we are working towards sharing those with the rest of the school to promote that program and keep it going. So our goal last year, and it is this year as well, that students will develop as readers and writers and develop through the Sunrise Literacy progressions. Next. Multiple strategies, and these are used in different ways throughout the year and throughout the different grade levels. But the reading and writing progressions are our number one strategy. Knowing where kids are at in their reading and writing journeys are very important. It guides student progress, it guides instruction to support that learning and the advancement of students through those progressions. Literacy Place is something that is a team, and we use those tools in there to assess the reading and writing skills to help us plot the students on the progressions. Literacy assessments are moving through all grades. We're looking at a pilot project, continuing a pilot project this year in grade 1 and grade 5. So Natalie comes in and works with the grade 1 teachers and will be coming in 3 to 5 times a year to really focus their work in literacy and reading and writing. And Joanna comes in and works with our grade 5 teachers, really focus that. And they started that last year, so they had the goals from the end of the last year, and we're moving forward with those. Highlights from that is strengthening small group instruction, building capacity in guided reading, and then strengthening instructional practices. When to use small group, when to use full class instruction, when to use one-to-one instruction. And targeting intervention for the students who need it, either the students who need enrichment or the students who need that extra support. We're also looking at using flexible grouping for students. So they're not always with the same group. They get to hear different people, different adults. And for the teachers to ask, where do I go next? And where do I go next with the small groups, with individual students, and with their whole class? And this is all part of responsive teaching, meeting students' needs in all areas where they're at and letting the assessment guide instruction. We also are looking at using some of our reading recovery data in grade 1 through the observation surveys to again identify students who would need that extra support. Our classroom profiles are a snapshot looking at group strengths, group challenges, but then also goals for the classes and where do the teachers want to target their instruction in order to move that whole class along. Our classroom profile meetings will occur next week. We have them scheduled October 11th and 12th. And teachers will get together with their student support person as well as guidance and one of us to discuss those class profiles. And these are working documents, which will be reviewed throughout the year. So either during collab times or through PD days and staff meetings. With the end goal of a final meeting where we will look at did we meet that goal and how can we change it for next year in those different areas. Next slide, please, for Shannon.
So some evidence of success that we've seen using the classroom profiles. They help us identify students with specific learning needs, including literacy gaps, and those students who as well could use and benefit from enrichment. The reading and writing progressions were used as a whole class profile in some circumstances with teachers. And then also for student-specific planning, it informed their instruction, and also was used to monitor that student growth and monitor that progress. Shanna's going to talk a little later about the report card data that also indicated growth and success. And another big evidence of success was classroom teachers' ongoing assessments, observations, inventories, with support from our student services team. It really showed development of skills and that cyclical instruction, assessment, and guiding practice. Next slide, please. We're going to take you through some photos of some learning experiences that children participated in over the last year. The photo on the left is students during restrictions. We're sharing some reading with each other in small groups outside. The next photo to the right is a book talk. I know Joanne Captain worked with grade 5s around, book club around developing that strategy in the classroom. And next slide here, also another way we work towards is engaging our learners to show their understanding of literacy and comprehension across grade levels. But in this case, there was a Choose Your Adventure board game. So after students read a novel, the one on the left is a Choose Your Adventure board game, and the other slide on the right is a picture of a diorama that represented the book. Next slide, please. And the photo on the right, last year at an assembly, we had 3 of our students recognized by the Legion for their Remembrance Day essay. So bringing that writing into the classroom as we, through the lens of Remembrance Day and as a citizen too, embracing that writing. And lastly, Heritage Fair. Our grade 5 students it comes together with research and writing and presentation. They work really hard, and families support them at home too with research and creating boards. And it's like a gallery walk. People in the community can now come in. It was very exciting when the restrictions had lifted, that we could have the gym abuzz with parents and students from the whole school, and kids sharing their knowledge that they researched either the Canadian citizen they researched or a topic. It was one of those things that kind of fill your cup as an educator, and seeing all that success celebrated. And lastly, another strategy for success, Shannon talked about small group instruction. We have a picture of that happening with some students. And then on the right, in our hallways, writing is evident, and this is just a snapshot of writing activity displayed around our school right now. We have lots of I'm thankful for writing happening and going up on bulletin boards with Thanksgiving in the corner.
So this slide talks about the multiple resources that teachers have used at different times. I just want to highlight a few of those. Working with the Jennifer Cheeks whole class reading assessment, we are moving towards using Jan Richardson, which is the next step forward in guided reading. Collaboration with program leaders, as I've mentioned before, has happened already. We have our first our meeting set with our grade 5 teachers on October 18th and our grade 1 teachers on November 3rd. but also collaboration within the grade levels and using the expertise that we already have in the school. Really building the teamwork amongst our teacher teams and through different grade levels, and building that collective efficacy with our teachers. So showing them how to do it so then they are more confident, and the students will benefit from that. Rather than always having somebody else coming in and leading it, having the teachers gain that experience and confidence with it. The other thing that is happening very soon is the early years evaluation, so the EYE. Our kindergarten teachers and grade 1 teachers, our kindergarten teachers will be doing the EYE training, and our grade 1, the observation survey training. So again, using those resources to find out where students are. Next slide, please. We looked at some data. This is our reading data for the whole school. Before I talk about the data, I just want to explain how I have this set up. So the 1, 2, 3, 4 down the left side, those are the report card category scores. So a 1 means that you are meeting grade level outcomes with limited understanding. A 2, meeting grade level outcomes with a basic understanding. 3, very good understanding, and 4 with an excellent understanding. So this is our reading data for the whole school, and we looked at term 1 versus term 3. I did have term 2 in there at one point, but I thought this was a better picture for you. So if you look at the reading data for the whole school, in term 1 we had 14 students who scored a 1, limited understanding in reading. In term 3 that went down to 7. That's a gain. Also looking at number 4, the students who scored 4. In term 1 it was 192 students. In term 3 that went up to 272. Gains throughout were evident, but I really wanted to point out those 1s and 4s, but I put them all up there. Next slide, please. And now this is by grade. So again, reading data by grade. The grades are down the side, 1 to 5, and then the 1 and the 4. So the first number is term 1, the second number is term 3. So if you look at, for example, grade 2. In term 1, 10 students had a 1. In term 3, 5 students had a 1. So decrease, right? So students are moving up that progression and increasing their understanding. And if you look at those same students at the 4, 32 had a 4 in term 1, and that jumped to 58 in term 3. There are some, times where it didn't go to the positive, or sort of where we didn't see that growth. Like for example, in grade 1, we actually had an increase of students, moving from term 1 to term 3 in the 1. That's going to happen. Multiple factors could have impacted that. We are only looking at this one data source, and other things, as I said, could have impacted. But overall, our students did improve in reading. Can we go to the next slide, please? Now this is writing data for the whole school, because as I said before, our goal is in reading and writing, so focusing on both of those aspects in literacy. And we see similar growth in our students. So term 1, we went from 23 1s to 6 1s in term 3. And the 4s as well was a big jump from 83 in term 1 to 146. We are very proud of our students for this. And then the next slide is the writing data broken up by grade. So again, you can see that for the most part, students from term 1 to term 3 are decreasing with the 1s and increasing in the 4s. So our next steps. We have the same goal that we did, because we don't believe that we are finished. The literacy project is continuing in, as I said, in grade 1 and grade 5. But we want to share those strategies and move those projects and those those goals, the strategies, thank you, in grades 2, 3, and 4. Right? It's not just in 1 and 5, but really focusing there, and then building that capacity. That's the word, that's the word I was looking for, building the capacity through grades 2, 3, and 4. We're continuing to work with those program leaders, but we're also not forgetting what we've done before. Prior to this goal, Oakbank Elementary did a lot of work on the optimal learning model, which is I do, we do, you do. So building the confidence in students and building that independence in students so that they can take what they're learning and apply it in other areas. We are sharing during PD days, collaboration staff meetings, and we also want to increase family connections so that our parents can know what we're doing. We do have a very active playground committee. We have a Ukrainian parents committee. But we want to invite parents in so that they can see what we're doing with their students. They can help us out at home as well and reinforce that. And then our last slide. We want to thank you for the site-based decision-making dollars that we have. We are able to use them to support additional team leader positions. So we split up our literacy team leaders between kindergarten to grade 2 and grade 3 to grade 5, so they can really focus on early literacy versus later literacy. And then you can't forget about numeracy. So we do have a numeracy program leader as well that we've purchased with the decision-making dollars. And we're also using those dollars for our teachers to be able to get together and face with us, again, to learn from each other. Thank you. That's all that we have.
So you can breathe now. Thank you very much for that. That was excellent. There may be some trustees that have questions or comments. We'll go ahead and do that. And we know that it's not easy to come and present in front of all these eyes looking at you, but good jobs. Thank you for doing that. Comments from anyone? Questions?
I'd like to comment.
Go ahead, Trustee Nicol.
Okay, I'm looking at the reading data, and I'm having a little bit of difficulty. Is that, you said the whole school, does that mean from K to 5, or just means from 1 to 5? Because you said there's 559 students in the school. When I add this term up, there's only 469, so there's a discrepancy. So where are those students?
So we took the data for that from grade 1 to 5. Our kindergarten students were counted in that total. Because their assessment plans are different, we didn't think that incorporating the kindergarten data into that would be as relevant as just keeping the grade 1 to grade 5.
Okay, that makes sense. So I know where those missing students are then, in the kindergarten section.
Anything else, Trustee Nicol?
No.
Thank you. Trustee Inslee?
Slightly off topic, but you did mention the playground. How are things developing there?
We are really excited that the playground phase 1 will be, the plan is for it to be built at the end of October. So I have a letter going out tomorrow that's looking for volunteers to help with that build during the last week. So kids are really excited, parents are excited. And we're still fundraising for phase 2. So the hot lunch dollars are going towards that. Our parents are amazing in their fundraising efforts. There's 3 additional fundraisers that I'm sending home information about tomorrow. So hopefully, we do get some dollars from there, and we can move forward with phase 2 in the spring.
Anyone else? Trustee Duma?
Thank you, Principal of Oakbank Elementary School. Vice Principal. Just really interested in that 16th page. I don't get to see that very often, but I really like the comment, increase family connections at the bottom, and maybe you could just share what some of those ideas are that you have.
That's something that we are still developing, so we don't have a firm plan on it yet. But some of the ideas that we have are to have, like I said, parent night. So come in and see what we're doing in literacy, come in and see what we're doing in reading and writing, but also with the numeracy too, because even though literacy is our goal, we can't forget about that aspect. And then to be able to have parents be able to talk to their kids about what they're learning. I'm a parent, my kids are in grade 6 and 8, and I get, what'd you do at school today? Nothing. How was your day? Good. Right? So being able to have those conversations and asking students questions to be able to get those productive conversations from them and support what's happening in the school. We do send home regular newsletters from the teachers as to what's happening in the school. Other ideas we're open to. That's as far as we've gotten there, but we know that we want to increase those family connections.
Trustee Harris?
A couple of quick questions. Just a comment. one of your pictures showed a group of students from afar in a gym with, I'm going to call it a science fair, because that's what I remember it being from 50-plus years ago. That was one of the best times in my life in school. Was that? I love that picture. Thank you so much for that. Two quick questions. Based on worldwide events, have you had any new Ukrainian students?
So first I'll comment on that picture. It is a heritage fair, so kind of like a science fair, but with the social studies curriculum focus. So students are looking at famous Canadians or, different ideas in history rather than the science. But the same idea. They have the board, they, go through their research and they present it in that way. To answer your second question, at this point we have not had any new registrations from Ukrainian families. We, however, did get a call today from a family who's just moved here from Nigeria.
How excited are the students to be back in school this year?
Incredibly. The smiles that we saw on their faces every day, especially when they saw that tables were back in classrooms, that their desks were able to be put into groups, and that they can work together. They can run in the gym. It's amazing to see the excitement and the increased engagement from that, but also from teachers. They can see students' faces, students can see theirs, and there's a lot that can be said, by facial expression and teaching, those social skills that it's much more difficult to do when you can only see your eye. So I'm excited to be there, and I believe that they are too.
Thank you so much for the presentation.
Any others? Trustee Pachkowski?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. It was great. I just have one question. You listed a large number of resources in your presentation, or a high number anyways, and I'm just wondering, are some of those resources more effective than others? And I'm guessing that would be yes. And then what other resources would you guys be looking for, and are the resources that you have enough, essentially, from a trustee perspective? I'd like to know.
Sorry, I'm just taking another quick look before I answer that. So those resources there are, I think that list could be overwhelming for a lot of people. And a lot of our teachers, are like, how do I use all of this, right? So what we've asked them to do is pick a few things, right, and take those baby steps towards building their capacity. The Fountas and Pinnell and some guided reading resources we would really like to get our hands on. It's something that we are going to have to save up some funds for, because to buy full grade level sets and full school sets, that is a significant purchase. So if we're looking at where we can, increase the depth of those, I'd say it was in those guided reading resources. Would you agree with me?
And always building classroom libraries with a variety of texts and genres for kids to engage in. Just developing that, which also takes resources.
Increasing the high interest and different reading level books is something that we are always looking at in our library as well as in our classroom libraries. So kids can have things to choose from that they like, to try to encourage the reading. Did we answer every part of your question?
You did, thank you, but I got a second one for you. So over the course of the last 4 years, we hear a lot about at this table about data triangulation, and it seems like how you came up with your assessments on your students is through that method, right? And that's just you're collecting that data from multiple sources and in different ways. So I guess something I hear quite often as a trustee from parents and communities, and I'm sorry I'm asking this question while you guys are at the hot seat, but it's tough for parents and for families to rationalize report card scores when they just see simple numbers, right? So, and I'm not saying that's what we're doing, but I think sometimes, and I'm being honest that this was some of the feedback I get from families regularly is, do we increase numbers simply to increase numbers and because I've had families say, you know, like I haven't even seen the progress. I read with my child every night, and I haven't seen the progress that's being maybe reported on a card. And so I just wonder about that and sort of your perspective and how those things are determined and that sort of thing. So.
Well, I think.
Sorry, I know it's a tough one too, but.
Well, I'll take a crack at it first, and then Shanna can jump in. I think using tools like the reading and writing progression, it kind of it scaffolds the learning in the next steps, and teachers communicating that. And if we did have a family night, even in numeracy, we could show parents kind of some different strategies. I'm much older than a lot of our parents at our elementary school. You know, back in the day, things have changed, our strategies and our use of technology and things. So I think having those opportunities for parents to come in the building and seeing it hands-on and having kids show this is what we're doing here. And then communication, report card is all about communication and student learning. And that's directed by the province. So we have, you know, the criteria. But we always try, I think as educators, to be really specific in, you know, what's Jarrett doing in reading that he didn't do last term. Wow, you're building your fluency, and you know you're connecting with the new vocabulary. So I think, you know, sometimes but then we don't want to have too lengthy of comments either. So I guess it's kind of a balance of everything, but I think communication through teachers doing newsletters. I know as a classroom teacher, when we were doing Power of 10, it was kind of a new thing, and I'm really aging myself. But then, like, parents didn't know, so it's like, well, did you know? Like, kind of like that. So I think with parents, it's the communication. Things change, you know, brain research and education is always changing. We're figuring out different ways of what works better to meet, you know, all of our students, Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 students, and really support that learning as a system. So, I don't know.
And you know, the data that I put on here was specific for the reading and writing for this school. It is not the only source of data that we use. You know, you talked about triangulation. We're using those all the time, right? Observation, especially in an elementary school, is pivotal and integral, you know, to the assessment of students. And teachers are communicating that to parents in different ways, whether it's through notes in the agenda or emails home. I've also encouraged them to call parents, right? Speak to them about how their child is progressing or ways that they can help at home. One thing that I did last week actually is a parent asked, what should my child be learning? So I directed them to the website, which shows all of the curriculum. And some parents, you know, are really interested in that and they don't know where to go. So providing those resources for parents to see what should we be doing in grade 3. And then there's also those the work samples of this is what a 2 looks like, right? This is what a 4 looks like, and parents can understand, you know, what their child is doing, but also for parents to realize that fare is not always equal, and things don't look things don't look the same for each student. So if your student and your child is progressing, then that's success. And we want students to feel that success, that they are happy to come to school and that they're willing to try and have a good attitude towards learning. And that attitude can go a long way. And for parents to encourage that at home. You can be frustrated with things, but you got to keep trying. And those are the conversations that I'm having often. So yeah, a lot of parents won't know what a 2 means. So I encourage them to ask those questions.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Trustee Rowland?
Just really like the comments you just made about reaching out to parents. I know as a parent, I'm going through all that. I'm always wondering, like, what are those kids really doing in that room all day, and how are they, you know, they're not eager to talk, that we're able to explain and stuff. So any little tidbit feedback was always like a treasure to me to know and get an insight into that. That's great. I had one question about the Heritage Fair, which I'm so excited to see a picture of because I've visited that in the past, and it is such a delightful day. Were parents allowed in there, and did you peruse the other classes through that as well?
So yes, this past year, parents and community members were invited. I was there as a parent, so I was able to see my daughter's project and then also be able to look at the rest. But there was many community members there. Kathy, thank you for joining and for coming to see it. And the kids were so excited to be able to show their project not just to their class, but to the other classes in the school and anybody who was able to. Grandparents, little brothers and sisters, it was wonderful.
I'm really glad to see that because I know that was such a big part of the kids' year, actually. Those ones to present and do those reports, and it's such an exciting day in the school. Thank you.
Anyone else? Shannon, to me as a retired educator, you knocked this out of the park. You talked about fill your cup as an educator. You filled my cup as an educator tonight. You talked about a goal as developing readers and writers. I always want to find out, well, what does develop mean to you? However, you showed evidence, you showed data, you showed the things that you're doing, and you know what, I think that you demonstrated that what you're doing is working. We've certainly seen growth. And again, there's probably lots more growth that you didn't show to us, but certainly just on report card data alone, the growth that's there, that's some of the stuff that we're looking for. We talk an awful lot about budgets and buses and buildings, and we don't talk enough about what you're doing in here. But I think what you're doing and the evidence you provided about what you're going in your classroom, you know what, I think that you guys have, so kudos to your staff for certainly the work that you've done. For me, this is why I became a trustee, is wanting to find out this specific. If I would have first seen your thing as saying develop as readers and writers, I would have, I'm sometimes wanting a number as to where it is, but you know what, the evidence certainly showed as to, and your data showed certainly as to where things are, so thank you very, very much for that. Great job. Kath, did you want to add anything else?
Just that I hope, again, I agree. I think that when we think about where we're at in education right now and what principals and assistant principals do, it is so much about instruction and building capacity with teachers and finding the right tools for the right tasks for the right kids and the right moment to communicate. It's not an easy gig, and there is much more than what we need to do in 15 minutes, so good job.
So Jared asked you one final question that I normally ask everybody. Jared asked you a little bit. You have the voice now of 9 trustees. We always start about budget and what we need to go ahead and do. So I'm going to give you 2-3 minutes. What does Oakbank need?
Well, we're getting a portable classroom this year, and I know that there are plans for a few more prior to a possible expansion. So right now we are short on space. Where can kids go? We have been able to open up a space for kids at lunch to have extra support, and we've shifted some of our student support services teachers' lunches to be able to be there for those students during that time. That room is pretty bare, so being able to make that a more welcoming space is important. We need some more gym equipment, some updated gym equipment to be able to program for students appropriately. We are currently running 2.5 gym spaces. There's one gym that has 2 classes in it, half of each day. And those kids are very crowded in there. We're making it work. But that is an area where I'm trying to figure out where to put these kids, especially as it gets towards the winter when now we all have to stay inside. So encouraging them to go outside right now by having another space to be able to do that, or a bigger space to do that. If we're looking at a possible expansion, that's something I would like to throw on the table, is how can we have a bigger recreational space. I mentioned some of the guided reading materials. The number that we were given to me was astronomical and not able to be accomplished in 1 year. I don't remember the exact number right now, but I do have it written down. But if we're pushing guided reading in small groups to be able to have the resources for teachers to run those programs. The playground is coming along, but having other spaces as well outside that are graded so that it's not flooded for 4 months of the year. In April, May, and June of last year, we had a very limited playground space because of the water that's there. So I don't know what it would take to change the grading of that to increase the drainage, but that is something that Oakbank Elementary does need.
Look out Lake Oakbank.
Those are the big things that I would like to see. There's a lot of other things that I could put out there. Those are the priorities that I'm looking at.
Well, again, thanks very much for joining us. We appreciate it. I know it's not easy always to go ahead and do this. You shared some great information for us, and that's something that we're looking forward to. Good work with you and your team as to what it is. So on behalf of our trustees, thanks for coming out tonight. And of course, you're more than welcome to stay for the next 2.5 hours as to just kidding.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
4.2 is that we have Laura with the PD chair and Serena. Did you want to introduce them, Kath? Come on up, Laura and Serena.
Sure, so as they get settled there, one of the things that is a contractual piece of the Sunrise Teachers Association is an amount of money for professional development, and that is a negotiated item. And one of the things that we get to have is a report on how that's gone and things that you guys have accomplished with the PD fund. So the presentation is here. If you just give me a little next slide, I got you.
That's the button. As I said before, my name is Laura Skiba, and I am the PD chair for the Sunrise Teachers Association, as well as a teacher in Sunrise. Serena is our new president. She is joining me. This is her first time sitting through this. I have been through this once, but I'm a little bit more intimidated this time because last time I think most of you were not here. Okay, so just to give you a little bit of background on what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to give you the rationale for the professional development, an overview of what our contractual PD program looks like, what the funding criteria is, what our PD committee consists of, and the responsibilities, those different PD categories, the funding amounts, our application numbers for last year, and also our financials, and then just some challenges and some recommendations that I have for so the professional learning plan, school teachers or members, I should say, have the opportunity to apply for PD to work towards their PLPs, any school goals that they have, or any of the divisional goals that are set out. It's to be more effective university courses, and I'll reiterate that this is an investment in our members, because we can see that we're counseling, guidance, student support services, and admin. That is where the big trends are when it comes to the university courses. We also seen FIT, which is the French program through, basic French program through University of St. Boniface. And then there was also a cross-cultural education, which I think works really well with that Indigenous component and bringing that in. So they're really key, those university courses, for building capacity amongst our members. Then we saw trauma, mental health, wellness, and emotional regulating, which I think is a common thing that we're going to see for the next little bit, given what we've gone through in the last couple years. Again, we have our music clinics, our conferences. Literacy was also up there with some reading and writing PDs. Play-activated learning seemed to be a big one among elementary teachers. Reconciliation and traditional games, again, going with that Indigenous component. And then there was a wilderness first aid, which I believe went out to some of those canoe trip people who get to go on canoe trips. Our financial report, so here's our numbers. Again, you'll see any of the red lines are our canceled applications. The yellow have not yet been claimed for the 2021-22 year. Reimbursement, the blue, which you won't see on this slide, but you will on the next, that is ones that were paid out even though they were from the previous year funds, and it came out of last year's school funds, because the cutoff is June 31st or 30th, and then whatever comes in after that, if it's a university course or it's a PD and it ends on whatever day and they can't get their receipts in time, then it comes out of the next year's funding allotment. All the green are the processed ones, but those were processed out and received reimbursement. And then any, oh, you won't see the purple because I deleted the purple, I'm sorry. And then there's just the second. Okay. So our total funds, you'll see for our, we have SAGE there, but it's MTS PD Day. There was $12,509.98 or 78 cents that was reimbursed back. We did a total committed of almost $50,000, but the total processed was $38,469.47, and there is still about a $10,000 outstanding that still needs to be claimed. So some of our challenges, so once again, COVID created those problems for us with fewer options in PD. It wasn't until towards the end of last year, or I guess end of last year's school year, that we started to see that professional development starting to make a comeback, and people starting to actually put out some PD options. Approvals were canceled without notifying the PD, so maybe they didn't go. Maybe that's why we see some of those yellows that aren't claimed, but we haven't been told that, so we don't know. So the money committed remains until the committee receives that notification. And then there's the late submissions for reimbursements, which leads to the funds being accessed out of the next year's funds, which is problematic moving into this year in the sense that this time, I would say that we have triple the amount of applications at this time than we did last year at this time. So if those people claim their $10,000 outstanding, that's $10,000 that we have less this year to be able to use for professional development. And I'm feeling, I got a good sense that we're going to see an increase in professional development wants this year. Those are just some challenges. So I do have a recommendation. I'm asking, pleading, begging, I don't know, for a one-time carryover of the remaining funds that were left from last year's budget of $120,000 so that we can provide more opportunities post-COVID, because there are some of those great opportunities that are coming out, especially in the trauma areas, and as well as literacy and numeracy again. And I believe, I feel, I know, because I hear that our members want professional development and are applying. They are applying because it is out there. So I'm a big believer that investment now has greater gains later. I'm also recommending that there's, as we move forward this year, and I will speak more with Kathy on it, but working with the Sunrise School Division as well as STA to kind of maybe provide some more professional development opportunities and discuss what we could do as a division. I have the opportunity of sitting on MTS or sitting in MTS professional development seminars, and I get to hear from other PD chairs what's going on in their divisions, and there's some pretty cool things out there happening. So I think that I have that knowledge and that understanding, and I would love to bring it to the table and possibly work on a partnership there moving forward. So my next slide is questions. Thank you, and questions. And I know you're short on time, so you don't have to ask any. I was just joking.
No, thank you very much for going. You have to turn your microphone off. Thank you very much for that. I'll open it up to trustees. Do we have questions that we want to go ahead and ask?
So just to be clear, you're asking for a one-time carryover of, like, you have a committed amount of about $50,000 and an actual process of about just under $39,000. So you're asking for like the $70,000 carryover, the non-committed, or?
Whatever's remaining. So whatever's remaining right now is about an $80,000 allotment, because those committed are ones that still haven't been processed, so it would still come out of that budget line, and then there would be like about $70,000 that still nobody's applied for, nobody's putting any applications for, but then that is there for this year where teachers can actually access that, and we can allow more, because in typical years, so the last, well, we have some people who don't follow our guidelines, who don't get it in time, so we've had to say no to that as well. We have applications need to be in prior to the start of the PD for approval, so that way it can go through and we can say yeah, not after you've attended type deal or after it started. So we've turned down, that's maybe 1 or 2 out of a whole year, but in any typical year, yeah, we could be turning anywhere from 5, 10, 15, depending on what PD is there and what is available and how many want to go. Yeah, we've turned them away and said, no, there are no funds available.
So I'm glad we clarified that. My question was really, has anybody been turned down because the PD that your committee is looking at isn't, the committee isn't thinking that that's appropriate? Has people been turned down for that the PD, it's not a money issue, it's a, listen, we don't think that, pardon me? Yeah, something, yeah, educational.
I'm happy to report that my members all go for PD that does meet our guidelines and is completely appropriate for what they are applying for and does meet any divisional, personal, whatever goal that they are putting in their application for.
Perfect, thank you. Anyone else? Yep.
I've done this every year, and I sort of feel bad doing it. But as trustees, we have to answer to ratepayers, right? So a big part of this, and I do believe that there's obviously tons of value in PD, and I would imagine that in most cases, if not all cases, that does translate into classroom instruction, classroom activities, improves the teachers' capabilities in their job. However, we do answer to ratepayers. This is $100,000 that we provide to teachers to further educate themselves. And in some cases, would it be accurate to say that some of this PD results in classification increases and ultimately salary increases for some of our teachers?
Yeah, our university courses for sure. They are working towards a post-bac possibly. The one thing that I have noticed, because I do look at every single one of those applications that come through, I myself have accessed that fund. I too have my postback with a leadership certificate attached. I can say actually without a shadow of a doubt that every university course that I have processed in the last year, and I'm only speaking for the last year, have been towards but it's a certification of some sort. Our student support services, they need to have special certification for that. Well, they get that at the university level. So their certification comes through that. Our leadership, so our administration teams, they can get their leadership certificates. That has to come through a university designation. So yeah, have there been in the past? Probably, but not in the last year that I've seen everything, and even with the basic French, that has been to bring up so that they can teach basic French. So those trends that I showed were all specific to growth in professional growth.
Thank you, ladies, Serena and Laura, for the work that you presented to us. Oh, we have two more questions. Okay, Dawn, go ahead, and then we also have Trustee Duma. Dawn?
When a teacher goes on a PD session, do they make a report back to the to you so that other teachers can read about what was learned during the PD, and that will help them to grow also?
No, we don't have that requirement. However, we do have an STA newsletter that does go out, and if teachers wish to share something that they've learned from that PD, they can also submit an article to that so that that information can get out. But it is not a requirement in our guidelines that they need to share that information.
And I've been reaching out to members as well that have gone on PD, and I'm like, can you give me a little write-up? Is there anything that you would like to share? I would like to then disseminate it to other teachers in case they have ideas or wanting to know what you did, just to pass that information along.
Well, my next question is how many of those teachers, of the 70 teachers last year, submitted something to the newsletter?
None that I'm aware
of. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Don. Trustee Duma?
Thank you very much for the presentation. Lots of good information. It sounds to me like, having gone through COVID and having your experience with PD and applications, that you are predicting a potential increase in requests. Never mind the old ones that haven't been completed, but you're predicting over the next 12 years, people are going to jump back into it. And would you say that what percentage of the staff in Sunrise School Division actually try to access the PD money? Like, is it 50%, 80%, or fewer, and are there a lot of repeats?
I don't know those numbers off the top of my head. It's been a couple years, like I said, and being in the PD chair, I don't know what the numbers look like prior and how many applications we necessarily had. Are there repeats? Absolutely. I'm a repeater. I believe in PD, and yeah, we tend to see the same people. Again, the last 2 years, it's very hard for me to make that comment because we haven't had the access and the opportunities out there. So for me to say, oh yeah, it's always Johnny that's applying, I can't do that at this point in time. But I do sense and feel that there will be an increase in PD opportunities. We've already seen it. We're 30% hired, or 3 times as much as we were last at this time.
Just to be clear, the yellow lines on your report that they have not been processed, these are PDs that have been approved, and potentially these have been already completed, and those people have not submitted their reimbursement. Is there no deadline or restrictions on timeline on when to ask for this reimbursement, so it's more in line with your budgeted amounts for each year? Like, can this go on for another year?
Yes, I do.
So one of my goals this year as the new president of Sunrise Teachers Association is to follow up with each and every one of those PD applications that are in the yellow, and, well, not just in the yellow, but all of them. When they have completed their PD, make that connection with them, see if they want to enter something into, you know, the newsletter, or even give me a little snippet of what interesting facts that they learned during their PD, and then I can put that into a newsletter. So I haven't done that in the past because I'm new this year, but also to follow up with any of the outstanding ones. Did you attend? Are you getting your receipts? And just that little friendly reminder. We're all humans. Sometimes things get, you know, pushed to the side, and just sometimes getting that friendly, you know, little email, hey, you know what, you need to send in your receipts or else you may not get paid. That's definitely on my hit list to do this year.
Well, thanks, ladies. We appreciate it for taking the time and coming out, and it's great to see Serena and Laura as well. So thanks for coming out and presenting in front of us. We appreciate it. Yep. They can, of course. They can, of course.
As much as I would love to stay.
We're going to move on. 5.1, our minutes from September the 20th. Be it resolved, the board adopt the September 20th board meeting minutes. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Trustee Pachakowski, seconded by Trustee Rowland. Questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. Okay, so it passed 6-2 and 1 abstained. We now go to 6.1, Superintendent's Report. Kath?
I will grab two quick highlights. Pardon me, we've heard a lot of educational stuff, and we've heard a little bit about last week being Truth and Reconciliation Day, and our schools have done a ton of work, including traditional teachings, orange shirt days, flag songs, treaty, land acknowledgements. We've also had some Indigenous language learning in our schools. So just a big shout out to our schools, to our staff, to our students, because they've really embraced the work that needs to be done there. And there's more to come through a document called Wamatuwisuwin, which is a Manitoba document that will help schools get even further ahead on some of the learnings we need to do. And there's some other things in my report that we've talked about, or you can look at as for information. But November 2nd is Take Our Kids to Work Day in Manitoba. So grade 9 students across the province will be heading out to enjoy the world of work. And it does not have to be necessarily with their parents. They can go with a caring and responsible adult to a job of their choosing. So please, any of those grade 9 students that you know and love as nieces and nephews and neighbors, they are more than welcome to join you and come to your place of work with you on November 2nd. Questions?
Questions for Kath? So one thing Kath and I talked about, just so that you know, is that Kathy doesn't make the rules about cold weather closures. The 9 of us do. So the 9 of us make a policy. And Kathy has to follow that policy. And so whether it's roads, we have a policy. Whether it's cold weather, we have a policy. So the onus is on us that if anybody in the public doesn't like our policy, it's not Kathy that goes ahead and makes that policy. It is the 9 trustees that make that policy. So, as Kathy reminded us, as we're heading into cold weather, if the Board of Trustees wants to change that policy, then the Board of Trustees needs to look at the policy to go ahead and change it. It is, just a reminder, is that who gets most of the telephone calls? Well, Kathy does, but Kathy follows the policy that we set for Kathy. So, again, it's in there if you want to go ever take a look at it, if it's something that you want someone to review or whatever, that's there. So just to give you a heads up, certainly that's our responsibility with it. If there's no other questions for Kathy, we'll move on. All right. So you have the draft reporting schedule, reminder that it's for information that's there, and as Kathy puts it through, Stacy, can you put that up for us? Oh, okay. So just a reminder, that is, that schedule that's on there that you have on your computers, it's on the screen. It talks a little bit about what we ask people to go ahead and do. Kathy brings that to us at the beginning of the year and talks a little bit about when the reports are, those kind of things. So that's there for information. And you have that, and that is something that will continue to be on our, for us. And again, if we want to change something, that's something for us to go ahead and change. All right. So we've got our draft, sorry, thanks for that, Secretary Treasurer. So Jody?
Yeah, just give everybody an update on what all the departments are doing right now. Highlight for transportation, they've been reviewing all the eligible pickups for all the students and ensuring all the students that are eligible for the bus are on the bus, and that there's adequate spaces for the students and not that they're jam-packed in the buses. Transportation, I can let everybody know that transportation did add an additional route this week, new to the routing system that they have. In the Gillis-Tyndall or Carson-Tyndall area, there was about 4 buses that are completely full capacity, with some of the routes running more than an hour. So by adding this additional bus route, brought 3 of the buses down to less than max capacity, giving some wiggle room for additional new students that could come on board later this year. In addition, they found that they were able to have that 1 hour target. The students that were going over the 1 hour, they were able to be under an hour of a bus ride. So a lot of reviewing is being done right now. Also on their to-do list for the month of October is to work on the evacuation drills for the school buses. So, and as well, the propane bus project is coming along. They've installed now the power to the propane filling system or station, and they hope to have the final hookup done to the tank within the month. So busy for transportation this month. They're also reviewing any other additions that come through the request and see if non-eligible busing, if there's room for them. Maintenance again, I wanted to show everybody the new windows that are going in at ESS. We're happy to say that they're coming in. It is a slow process, and I just want to say kudos to Lonnie and the team over there for working with, as best they could, with Canotech and Derek and Tyson as well, the head maintenance custodian over there, trying to coordinate and make sure that none of the classes are interrupted during school, and that the contractors can work after hours as well. But I'm happy to see that there is a lot of progress and a lot of windows going in. Also with SEI, my understanding is the last update I received early last week, I should say, all windows are installed at SEI, so I'm happy to hear that, and I'm sure the principal over there, Kevin, and his team are happy to see some windows as well. Maintenance is also working hard with the contractors on the science lab renewal project in Lactobani, Whitemouth, and Powerview. Another update with the Whitemouth Daycare Committee, they have requests to kind of push pause on the project right now. There's a couple other things that are going on, and we had a lot of momentum in September, and they just wanted us to hold tight for a moment, and they'll revisit the project in a few months. At this time, the project was to the point where we were getting some engineer or, an architect design. There was some changes made to the original draft, so we were at the point where we just needed to update that and then get pricing on cost of construction to redesign the one room they'd like to use. So right now the project is on hold. There was discussion as well in the last 2 weeks with the Oakbank Playground Committee. They're doing amazing work over there. By the end of October, as the principal of Oakbank Elementary said in the presentation, there will be information going out to parents looking for volunteers for the build day for the playground. So we're happy to say, I believe it's close to end of October that the construction and build will take place, but final dates will come shortly once the contractor, and once the contractor knows exactly which day will be best, it'll be subject to the weather, of course. So that's all exciting news over there. Finance, they're busy with the student enrollment count. And then purchasing is investigating right now on a cashless payment option for vending machines at SCI, ESS, both locations. There's been talk about rather than having cash at the vending machines, that everybody could use, say, debit machines or debit cards. So right now we're looking at what's the best viable option for cost and ease of use. ICT will be working with finance to ensure that all the correct codes are, when we do our student enrollment count, we have to report to the province how many students we have and all the transportation codes, who's eligible, non-eligible. We've been having difficulty with the current software provider at Assembly, so transportation has been, ICT has been working with transportation and finance to kind of get that system working, that we can report accurate information to the province. And happy to say that the Beausejour tech position for ICT has been filled, and the individual, Brendan Black, will be starting at the end of October. So other things that are taking place, we met with the RMS, or I met with the RMS Springfield to discuss the Dugald daycare parking lot and the Dugald school. There was talks about putting up a fence where the Holland Street has been extended. I was able to confirm that we have, or the council of the RMS Springfield has dedicated at least $2,500 towards the project area, or the projects in the area. I sent over some information today as to the fencing costs. We're also talking about improving a sidewalk where the bus loop is at Dugald School as well. Other things, I met with Hofer School and Heartland School. Everybody's doing really great there. The schools look like the students are happy to be there, and the staff are happy to be in the schools. So it's great to see going to those schools and visiting the students is great. And I was able to meet with the province regarding the location of the Oakbank Elementary portable. We wanted to make sure, a conversation that did take place is making sure the drainage in that area is sufficient, as we know that Oakbank has some drainage issues, and the issues with the playground and location for where the water is not draining off. So we had a really good discussion with the province, and we'll see what the final engineering drawings are going to come back with. That's about it.
Thanks, Jody. Any questions for Jody? Trustee Duma?
I guess I had understood, I think, from our conversations that it was more than financial. It was also the labor support from the RMS Springfield, also correct? That they were going to be offering assistance with gravel trucks or whatever for the parking lot. It wasn't just what's on his report, right?
Yeah, I don't read my reports word for word. It does say in the report that the RMS Springfield is overseeing the Dugald parking lot expansion. So yes, they're overseeing it, and we had a bit of a funding commitment. I just didn't read my report tonight word for word, but it's in there.
Thanks, Jody. Trustee Inslee?
With the extra bus route, did we just use one of our spare buses? Because we have spares, don't we? Like what? How? Because if we put another route on, was it done at a different time, or have we actually put one of our spare ones into commission?
Yeah, I'd have to double check with the manager of transportation on that, but I believe I asked that question, and the intention was they'd just pull out the one of the spare buses. They do have a driver put in place for that route.
Just one more question. You said that all the windows are in a SCI now. Does that include Kevin's office? Because it wasn't there.
As far as I know, the last update I had was, yeah, all the windows are in. So, in the office door, that I don't know.
Trustee Rowland?
My question is about the playground in Oakbank, and I'm not exactly sure of the relationship between our maintenance department and the playground committee and their responsibilities in developing that phase one of that playground. And I guess what I'm alluding to is that, like, there's been, I've seen in the community people talking about the playground committee is purchasing the concrete for that, and I feel like, you know, maybe that's a responsibility that our division should be overseeing to be sure the quality and concrete is up to code for our school. Like, I just wanted to confirm what is our actual role in that phase one development. Like, if the playground committee is purchasing concrete to pour this weekend, want volunteers, where's our people confirming that that's going to be quality product to the code?
Yeah, I know it's a tough one, but with the playground, I understand there's no funds really committed for playgrounds other than long-term maintenance within our budget. New construction for playgrounds is more of a fundraising PAC-related side of the project. When it comes to ensuring that the playground is installed up to standards and codes and structural importance, we do have conversations with the playground committee and understand who's overseeing the project. Right now, I do understand that Playgrounds Are Us will be the general contractor, and Playgrounds Are Us will be providing staff themselves or with their own staff to construct that. So when it comes to concrete and ensuring that it's to code, my assumption would be with the general contractor, Playgrounds Are Us. I know I had a conversation, probably it would have been Tuesday, with the playground committee chair, as well as Derek, and we also had a conversation with Playgrounds Are Us. So if you have any other information, that if there's further like new information that they're still looking for general contractor assistance, that's kind of new to my understanding.
I'm not exactly sure that's the scenario, but I just see that the playground committee is, is acquiring the concrete. So I don't feel that's, either the contractor or our maintenance or somebody, could have a better angle on that. Let's just say expertise and also a source, maybe pricing or something like that to work with that committee on getting that. But I just, maybe it's something you can look into and report back later.
Yeah, I know Derek has been having conversations with the playground committee, so I don't know, on that level, I kind of leave it up to the manager to work with the playground committee or any committees when they want to install something and make sure that it's within our safety specs.
I can comment about a playground that was put into Powerview a number of years ago, and there was the same kind of committee that the parents had. They did do a lot of outsourcing some of the stuff, but it still went through Derek as to about going ahead and doing it. I think from what Jody's saying, that would be the same thing. But can someone go ahead and purchase, the 20 yards of cement? Yes. But it does need to go through somebody, like you're saying, it does need to go somebody certainly with the school division, to making sure they're going to lay this, they're going to do this, and Derek is aware of the company that's doing it, those kind of things.
I would just also like that there would be some, if there was a possibility of us providing some, special rate of pay on concrete. We do other work in the community and we have maintenance contracts with suppliers and whatnot, like, are we not able to assist in that? I don't know.
So I would turn around and say then, do you know what, I'll go back to the Powerview one. It was also like talking to Derek, okay, Derek, here's the committee, they want to go with this concrete guy. Well, you know what, that's also what purchasing would do for us. Well, we also have our own, this other concrete guy for us to go ahead and do it, and we can get it at this price, and then the decision certainly being made. I would hope that that's the same kind of discussion that's going on here. Anything others? Okay, so thanks, Jody. So we're going to go down some of our board business. We have a division mileage rate. You have the information there in front of you. Twice a year, we look at the division mileage rate to take a look. There's a recommendation there that the mileage rate stay at 50% at 50 cents per kilometer. You have the information there. Before we go any there, is there any discussion? Okay, So be it resolved that the Board of Trustees set the division mileage rate at 50 cents per kilometer effective October the 1st, 2022. I then move in a second, or moved by Trustee Pachakowski, seconded by Trustee Harris. Any conversation to it? Okay, hearing none, we'll vote. So it passed 8-1. Thank you. Monthly student enrollment, you have that information. And I can just check that I pulled up the enrollment that we had at last year. And I think that we have 100 more students, Kath, from last September 30th to now September this time around. It's for information. Did you want to add anything, Kath?
Yeah, I'll just add that, again, remember we start fresh every year because we have 300 grade 12s leaving and we have 400 kindergartens coming in. It's a different entire cohort of kids. So we don't really compare to last year. We do our projections for staffing based on what we think we'll have, and that's the number we kind of compare against. So yeah, we're stable and increasing, which is a good place to be.
Questions? Okay. Thanks, Kath, for that. 8.3 is the grade 9 to 12 credit attainment report. It's for information. Kath, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I do really quickly want to take folks through it just for a couple of quick things. You have it here, but you can look at that and say, you know, one of the pieces that we want to make sure that everybody understands is this is information from the last school year. So last year's grade 9s are this year's grade 10s, and this is the total number of credits that they could have obtained in their grade 9 year. So because I call Edward Schreyer School and Springfield Collegiate are on a 10-block system, and Powerview, Lac Du Bonnet, and Whitemouth are on an 8-block system, that's the difference between you can get 9 credits and 8 credits. Why 9, you ask, in a 10-block system? Because they do double time in math to get the 1 credit. Grade 9 math is a toughie, so they get 2 doses to get the 1 credit of math in grade 9. It then goes on to show you graphs for each of those grades, and you will see up the side the number of students that got 11 credits. How on earth could they get 11 credits when they only had a possibility of 9? There's private music option and cadets and all sorts of volunteer things that they could be doing. So we have some keen folks that have gotten some extra credits here. But that sort of gives you the lowdown of how many students have obtained how many credits in their grade 9 year. And you can see that the bulk are around 9 or 8. And so that's, you know, promising information. It goes up through the grades. So this year's grade 11s, this is this year's grade 11s. How many should they have in the bank? Could they have had in the bank? You'll see that the difference between École Edward Schreyer and Springfield Collegiate is 19 to 18 because this is only their first year in the 10 block. So this will catch up over the next years as the 10 credits catch up to the students. And then it goes on to the credits that they have for their year, our current grade 12s and what they could have obtained and what they received, and then what our graduating students could have attained, and then we've looked at the grad credits of different meetings. There's a secondary report attached to there with some other rationale, but I just wanted to quickly take you through what these numbers in this presentation or this PowerPoint mean.
Thanks, Class. Sorry. Thanks, Kathy. I know, I don't know what, sorry. Spit out marbles or something. Sorry about that. Any questions for Kathy? Yeah, Trustee Rowan.
Just to confirm, you need 31 credit hours to graduate, or is it changed to 32 now?
It is actually 30. So it's always been 30. Again, the compulsories change a little bit, but it's 30 credits. Good question.
Others?
Yeah, could I?
Go ahead, Don.
Okay, from what I understand, the school day in Edward Schreyer and Whitemouth is exactly the same from 9 to 3:30. Does that mean because Edward Schreyer has 39 credits and Whitemouth School has 32 credits, that the Whitemouth School students do more time to get a credit, have to spend more time to get a credit than Edward Schreyer students have to get a credit?
They have less homework, but don't tell the kids at Edward Schreyer. Yeah, they have more minutes of instruction in the class, John, because the day would be cut into 4 sections versus 5. You're right.
Okay.
So Don, there's more instruction time in the schools that have 8 blocks compared to the schools that have 10 blocks per course. You're right.
But like Kathy said, those other ones have to spend more time doing their homework.
I'm glad you put it that way, yes.
Okay.
Trustee Duma?
Thank you for the report. Just, could you provide some more information, just the statement that the grade 9 credit attainment data is one of the highest predictors of successful completion of high school programming and graduation. Could you kind of dig into that as to why that is?
Yeah, and it's not a Sunrise thing. It's not data that we look at in Sunrise. That's educational research-based data across multiple worldwide and Canadian research institutes. That students who complete their grade 9 academic courses on the first go-through equate to a higher success rate of graduating. And so that's a research-based fact. I could dig into some articles and talk to you about why that might be or why that might not be. So there are some pieces, but that is a research statement, and why we look at that as a really important indicator for our kids' success.
I guess there's something about grade 9 attainment. There's a shift from the grade to the type of schooling that you have when you get into high school. Could be possibly. So is that a place where Sunrise makes sure that they focus their efforts and energies on that grade 9 level if this is what the result is if they don't get it?
Yeah, and I think there is a big switch into an all or nothing approach in kindergarten to grade 8 versus you're starting to bank credits in the grade 9 process. You're also starting to if you don't succeed in one of your academic courses and have to backtrack to take it, especially in a smaller school, if it's offered in the first semester of my grade 9 year, and I have to retake a course, but it's not offered till the second course of or the second semester of my second year, I'm now hanging out with some kids who are way younger than I might be, and some of that social stigma attached to how do I get those credits if I don't get it the first go-round become a little bit tougher. So I think some of those barriers, some of the obstacles, sometimes maturity, sometimes attendance, very often some of those poverty issues of I might not have been able to get what I needed so that I could get those credits, and it just kind of leaves some people behind. So our principals absolutely look at that grade 9 data because it's really critical and important that we have success happening for our kids in grade 9.
Thanks, Kath. Anyone else? Okay. Excuse me. We have a subdivision in the RM of Reynolds. It's for information. You have that. Is there any comments that we need from anyone? Thank you. So 8.5 is the cold weather policy. You heard me talk a little bit about it already. Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I thought you were my opening act for this one. I was leaving it off on purpose because I thought we had it here. I wanted to highlight just a couple of quick things for our millions of people and for Evelyn here. Again, if we have a closure because of road conditions or blizzards or ice-covered roads, we do an all or nothing closure because it's really hard to decide where exactly the ice stops on a highway or where the wind stops blowing. So if it is a weather-related closure, because we have so many vehicles heading this there and everywhere, it is an all or nothing closure. We have added this board added a piece in here last year saying each student will be provided with at-home learning materials for days when schools are closed. So we have a spot on our website, and we have some teachers working on some snow bag pieces that we're going to try out for the first time this year. So that if we get that call saying, hey, there's no school today, we can go find our secret snow bag, or we can go onto the internet and get some stuff that we can do at home. That's a pretty big, important piece. The temperature piece, again, like Paul said, and thank you, was a really good warm-up act. I have to look at what this says, and it says that at 35 degrees or colder without any wind chill, that's the magical number at which we make the call that we're going to not run our buses and close schools. If it's minus 45 with the wind chill, that's the other magical number to look at. And here we do break into 3 regions. And we use the Environment Canada stations because they are regulated weather stations as opposed to the average of weather stations in people's backyards that you might find on AccuWeather or the Weather Network and those kinds of things. So they are Environment Canada stations. This one here, Environment Canada Winnipeg Airport, that is the closest one we have. So the ones we have are here, Gimli, or Kleefeld in Steinbach. So that's the Environment Canada weather stations that we use for this region. I can say that Lord Selkirk and Stonewall and a lot of the others around the perimeter use that same temperature. One of the pieces we talked about is that if this is a thing that we'd like to lobby for, getting an Environment Canada station somewhere in this area, I think would be a delightful thing to lobby for. Whitemouth and Lac du Bonny use the Environment Canada in Pinawa and the temperature from the Environment Canada in Pine Falls for Region 3. If we have a cold weather closure, staff are coming into school. So we will have a bit of a remote learning model where teachers are accessible by students. That might be by phone, that might be by computer. It will not be that everybody logs in at 9 o'clock and does their math class at 9 and their social studies class at 10. I think that's probably not the best model, but that they will have access to their teacher to get some help on some things if it is a cold weather closure. We strive to get that out by 6:30 in the morning because our buses are on the road a little bit sooner than that, so it is an early call, but that's the reason for the 6 o'clock call when we make that call. I had one other thing that I wanted to say, and I totally lost what that is, so it can't be that important. I don't think we're going to have any because we've shared all of this with you tonight.
Any questions or comments? Trustee Harris?
Our household received, I'm going to say within the last few days, the Sunrise Emergency Broadcast System phone call testing that we have a phone. Anyway, I assume that the whole division received that.
Yeah, so we do a test call to our staff because they will get those cold weather region things. So we just wanted to make sure we had all our staff phone numbers correct. We didn't wake all the families up, or we didn't interrupt supper with all the families on Sunday night, but we did a test on Sunday to make sure that our staff were all current. Other places where we post that is on the website. We do a Facebook and a Twitter feed and on the radio station. So we are hopeful that everybody will know.
Others?
Did trustees get that?
We'll check and see. I know that there was, we'll check and see about it. I'm not sure all trustees got it, so they'll look into it. Okay. Kathy just said I didn't want to be called, so that's why I didn't get it. So, but we'll check on that. Trustee Duma?
Just to, even again, as part of that orientation, the trustees were asked to provide their phone numbers for contact or email for anything that came out of the Sunrise system. So if you didn't do that, you might not have gotten it, but just to make sure people know to give them their cell or email. But can I go back to the closed school weather thing? So thank you for providing this, because I think it's a good thing to make sure we always have at the hand and at our ready, because this year was quite a fluky year with 10 days closed. It put a lot of people and families into panic. I think it's unfortunate that our board really didn't possibly take the time maybe to talk about impact of what another closed day would be to the parents and families in Sunrise, because it just kind of like went so quickly. I mean, even it was Easter weekend, right, which is unusual. But I think the piece here that I am concerned about as a trustee is that, yes, we are definitely concerned about safety. We don't want to have people at risk or kids at risk. But I also think we need to really explore the impact of closing a school. And, you know, yes, there's online learning, or if that's possible, but I think it has to be discussed by the board, because there's an impact to the folks who now have had 10 days of what to do because the schools are closed. And the other thing is that sometimes happens is it'll be very cool in the morning, And then all of a sudden, by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the weather has completely changed, and everybody's outside wondering, why did we close the school today? Because the weather changed. And I know sometimes you can go from Highway 1 cross to Steinbach, and it's completely different when you get to Enola. The weather completely changes. There's highs and lows across. But I just think as a board, the impact is really, really important to have the board really let people know what's happening, why we're doing it, and what all the details are. And appreciate that people are very concerned about it. And maybe it's for our future discussion again also. Thanks.
So, Trustee Duma, that is exactly why we have it on here. Again, for people then to go ahead and be able to come back and listen to the discussion that we're going ahead and having. And yeah, you know what, I think that last year, as things were happening, Kathy kept us abreast of what was going on, and was there a large impact, certainly on families, when we shut down for 10 days? Did Kathy want to shut down for 10 days? Not at all. And you know what? Kathy's damned if she does, and damned when she doesn't, about go ahead and closes, and yeah, you know what, we hear that loud and clear. Good point. Trustee Rowan?
I just wanted to make one comment about the unprecedented highway closures last year, putting the perimeter highway, which has never been closed in many, many years, had several closures, and does include our school division is included in that. And that was a real factor in several of those closures, that the highways are actually closed. So there's a new fellow at province in charge of that call, and he's got different standards for himself this past year than previous incumbent in that position. So just to be aware that the highway, that threshold has changed possibly downtown.
Thanks, Diane. Don, did you want to say something?
Yes. I think that the board was aware of how it impacted the students' learning, and that's the reason why we changed the policy that kind of, which Kathy alluded to, that there is no longer do you have snow days now, because if there's you're not going to school, you are still expected to do something either on learning or whatever the teacher has decided that class is going to do. And there's different systems of how they're going to do that, but we still expect the kids, even though that they are, we'll use the word, the old snow days, they are still going to be doing some learning. So, and that will impact the education of the students less than if they just had stayed home and didn't do any learning at all.
Thanks, Don. Others? Karen?
Kind of like reiterates a little bit what Diane said, Trustee Duma, but and I know that this has been brought forward and Kathy's explained it in detail before, but when you've got schools in Oakbank that don't require busing and the teachers are in and schools are closed, the same parent, whether I'm a Ward 4 trustee and whoever the 2 Ward 4 trustees are going to be going forward, the same parent is going to email those 2 trustees saying, I can get my kid to school, your teachers are in school, the bus is not running, but the argument is always that if there's staff in, and it is a huge impact financially to parents who have to go to work and can't stay at home. I know we've had this discussion endless amounts of times over the last 4 years, and Kathy has explained it like in detail, but I still think that like if parents need to cannot take the day off work, and the schools have got teachers in there and they can walk and get their kids to school, as to why they can't be allowed to go into school. So I know it's been, but I think it's something that needs to be revisited again. That's my thoughts.
Thanks, Karen. Others? So, do we have the appetite then that we want to revisit our cold weather policy and send it to our policy committee to take a look at it? Okay. So just a sec, Don. So I think that from Robin, I just think that in May you guys did look at the cold weather policy, and the policy committee had said that they were not interested in making any changes.
Well, we did add the idea of that take-home school package. I forget what the exact term was. So we did tweak it and modify it. But in terms of the rules itself, we were happy with the rules. They've been in place for many years. It's a call by Kathy. It's a tough call, as you said. You win, you lose. I don't want to make that call myself.
All right, so again, part of it is that I heard two trustees talk about it today, about thinking about something different. We did revisit it in May. Unless there's a majority of trustees that want to go ahead and do it, then we're going to leave it because of this discussion. But we did say that we would put it on here. But right now there's the excuse me. Right now there's the two trustees. Trustee Rowland.
I just wanted to remind everyone that all policies are reviewed on an annual basis, so this weather policy will come up again this calendar year. So the policy committee will have an opportunity to review it one more time in the very near future, like this year. So if we can let it go until that, unless there's some other exceptional situation.
Okay, thanks. So what I'm hearing is we wanted to put it on here to make sure that we had a discussion. People can go ahead and take a look at it. But as of right now, there isn't an appetite for us to go on. We talked about it in May. There are two that potentially would like to do it, but we're not with the rest of us. Okay, we'll move on. Thank you for that. Strategic plan is something that we said that was going to be ongoing on here. It's probably not now what this board is going to go ahead and do, but it's something that we need to continue to remind ourselves. Kathy and I talk a little bit about it. It's not something that we've been able to get to. 8.7, indemnity bylaw. There is a motion that here be it resolved that the board approve the first reading of the indemnity bylaw. Do I have a mover? Moved by Trustee Pachakowski, seconded by Trustee Harris. Questions or comments to the indemnity bylaw? Trustee Pachakowski.
It's been some time, but I just want to highlight something that I feel needs to be highlighted. So the federal government announced in its 2017 budget, I believe it was 2017, that to take effect in 2019, that any non-accountable allowances which were previously tax exempt, I believe, were no longer going to be. So there were lots of municipal governments and school boards that in 2019, when this took effect, I guess used the rationale that their take-home salary would be reduced, so they went and increased their salaries. And I was very proud of this board that we didn't do that at the time. And we didn't do that for the main reason that we were in the middle of collective bargaining and negotiations with many of our employee groups, and we just felt it wouldn't be, we weren't in a good place to give ourselves an increase in indemnity while we were negotiating with our employee group. So that's sort of some background as to sort of why this has come up now, just for people, for those millions of viewers that we have watching again. But I think that was, and if I'm speaking out of term, somebody can correct me, but that's sort of why we're at the place where we're at with this.
Thanks, Jarrett. Others?
Can I speak on that?
You can, Don. Go ahead.
Just the identity bylaw that we're doing now, we're doing very little changes. You can see that we passed the identity bylaw sometime in June, or maybe a little bit earlier, so the dollar figures were about the same. The only thing that we changed was about the dealing with if both the chair and the vice chair was away, and if the trustee who was chosen to be the chair would be able to get that same amount of money as that were official alternate. So that was one of the changes. And the other change that we made too was in the appendix. And the appendix, when we put in there, we just said that expect expense claims older than 3 months or from a previous school year will be not reimbursed. I just want to indicate what we mean by the previous school year. We're saying the school year starts in September, so the June you have July and August really to submit the claim. But if you submit it in September, you will not get repaid according to what we are proposing. And those are the only kind of things we're proposing. Any monetary figure we are not changing from what we had a couple months ago.
Thanks, Don. Trustee Duma?
Right, so this was passed in June the changing of the dollars amounts was passed in June. But the one piece on here is on page 2, which is in red. And I'm not so sure why there's a requirement to add that in, because I already read that in the second paragraph, and unless I'm not reading it clear, it's not clear enough to somebody. That's why there's a request to have this piece added in, the reimbursement of someone who is substituting for the chair or vice chair.
Yeah, because
It's not clear in it?
it wasn't clear because the official alternate for a committee member. Well, the chair was not a committee member, the vice chair was not a committee member, so we thought it wasn't quite clear enough, so we just added it in to make sure that it was clear enough.
Thanks for clarifying that, Don. Anyone else? Trustee Paczkowski?
Sorry, I should have clarified earlier. It came up to me from someone in the community as to why, like, going back to June, so that we didn't really talk about the rationale behind it at that time, so I just wanted to provide that clarification.
Anyone else? Trustee Inslee?
Sorry, can you just clarify, the bit in red, was that actually in the document in June? Is that what Don said?
Say that again, Karen?
The page 2 that Diane referred to is the Roberts Rules, the trustee who is chosen to chair the meeting in the absence. Like, was that...
No, that's a change.
And that's what we're voting on now. Okay.
There's 2 changes basically in here, there, and then it's 3-month-old expense claims. Basically, those are the 2 changes that we would go ahead and do. Anyone else? Trustee Duma?
I also was reading in, I don't know whether I read it in this one, but it was about who's deciding who is going to be the fill-in chair or vice chair. And I believe there's something that we have in our document that says it actually is selected by the board. The board votes in favor of it, not a single person, so.
Yeah, so that was my mistake. That was my mistake, and Don brought it to my attention. So when I couldn't come, when I wasn't able to come, and I knew Jared was come, is that Jared one time just called Don and asked Don if he could go ahead and do it. It should have been decided by the people at the meeting. The only difficulty that I have with that is, but we'll vote, it's there. The issue is that if we can't make it, for someone to show up and all of a sudden find out that they're chair, sometimes somebody wants to do a little bit of maybe preparedness. So, and Don told me about that. He said, hey, you know what, I got kind of caught off guard is that you guys asked me like 5 minutes beforehand because we both couldn't make it because of issues that happened. And Don said, hey, I would have liked some lead time. But Don is right. It is in our policy that it is chosen by the people that are at the meeting. Anyways, so that's something that people can think about. Go ahead, Don.
Yeah, one of the things we could do, the board could do next, the new board could do is that they could vote on, instead of voting at the meeting, they could be proactive and say, look, if the chair and the vice chair is not going to be there, this person is going to be the chair. So then that person will have some lead time. They'd be phoned right away. They don't have to wait until they come to the meeting and then all of a sudden they get voted on. So that's something the new board could consider, having that position already chosen ahead of time, and that would be, I think it would be okay with the public, with Robert's Rules of Order.
Yeah, and then it would be decided by the board as opposed to the chair making that decision. So that's a good suggestion, Don, for sure. Trustee Inslee?
Sorry, I'm just, whether Don said it, because obviously I struggle hearing sometimes. Just going back to that, the absence of both chair and the vice chair, then the trustee will be compensated. Is there a dollar amount associated to that? Because I can't see one.
I think it's about $5 million. Just kidding. Say that again?
It is there, because
No, just
the same thing for the $40.
It's the 2 numbers right above, Karen. One says for a meeting of 4 hours, $40, and for a meeting of more than 4 hours, $60. Sorry, I was kidding about the $5 million. Go ahead, Trustee Duma.
I think it's probably a good thing because we have had this occur, which hasn't happened in the past too much. But I also think that it may confuse the whole statement. I think the statement could be reduced to the last part of the phrase, that just a trustee who is chosen by the board to chair the meeting in the absence of both the chair and the vice chair shall be compensated as above. I don't think we need as per Robert's rules, because that's already embedded in our operational bylaw. It's embedded in it. And I don't think we have to have a repeat of operational bylaw, blah, blah, 374. Like, I don't think we need all that or stuff ahead of it. It just kind of confuses it. Just a statement as it reads through. Everything else doesn't have a reason for why you've done it. Like,
Excuse me. So this was put together by the policy committee. So this is policy chair coming back to you. There's a comment from Trustee Duma. Thoughts?
If it's the will of the board, we can remove the first line there after the comma.
Is it the will of the board that we're going to turn around and say, instead of saying as for Robert's Rule Order as well as operational bylaw 37 for 21, take that out and just say a trustee who is chosen to chair the meeting in the absence of both the chair and the vice chair shall be compensated as above. Trustee...
I speak against that.
Go ahead, Don.
If you look ahead, it says all members of standing committee or temporary standing committee, including the chair, as listed in the policy BDE. So that's one place where we explain what we're doing. So I think what we put in there, we're explaining it does according to Robert's Rules Order, our operation bylaw. So I don't see anything wrong with more explaining where we're getting the information from. That also says the one above the...
Thanks. I just Thanks, Don. So I've been reminded of what's on the floor. So there is a motion on the floor to accept the indemnity bylaw. We can either table it, we can either make an amendment to some of the language.
Well, you can only make an amendment to the motion itself, so not the language in that.
Okay.
So you can either call the question, or we can postpone the motion, I guess, or table it.
So if you want to change it, then we would have to table the motion, Trustee Duma. Just a sec. Is it to this? Yep. Kath?
I think from a procedural standpoint, the reason you have 3 readings of your bylaw is that if it should pass unanimously the first reading, you can go through first reading, second reading, third reading all in one meeting. If it doesn't pass, or if the first reading passes and you decide you want to table the second reading, it's coming back for a second and a third next, or it can be 1, 2, and then 3 the next. The reason you have 3 readings is for exactly this purpose, so that you can tweak whatever you need on reading 2 or reading 3. Unless I'm wrong with that, and someone can correct me.
Okay, so thanks for the procedural position. So we have a motion that's on the floor. And it's not to the actual wording that's in here as to what you're talking about, but the motion is on here, that the motion reads, be it resolved the board approve the first reading of the indemnity bylaw. So we've had some discussion about the bylaw. If somebody doesn't like the bylaws to where it is, you can vote against it. But that's where we are right now about in voting for the bylaw. Trustee Rowland.
Oh, boy. The comment I was just going to make, I think the will of the policy committee was to have this passed prior to the new board coming on, which is this meeting and one more, so for consideration, you keep that in mind.
All right. Trustee Duma?
so you have a motion to approve this bylaw. I'm proposing an amendment to this bylaw, which is what I'm allowed to do. So the amendment is to remove that sentence. So I need a seconder to back up my amendment, and then you vote on that amendment. If it doesn't pass, then you go back to the original motion, which is the whole bylaw. But you have a discussion on my amendment, which we've kind of half got into.
Okay.
But there was no seconder, I just proposed an amendment.
Okay, so we have a proposed for the amendment to the bylaw.
And the proposed amendment is to remove the first phrase on page 2, the first part of the phrase that's read.
Okay, so I need a seconder to that amendment. Karen, you're going to second the amendment. I think that some people have spoken to that amendment. Do you want to speak any further to that amendment? We're going to vote by hand, right, Stacy? Okay. So we have the amendment motion on the floor. Is there any further comment to the amended motion?
Well, but we haven't, she hasn't amended the motion.
We want,
Voting on whether we're going to do it.
Haven't changed the motion. Sorry.
we're voting on whether to, we're voting on whether we want to amend the indemnity bylaw. So I'm going to call the question by hand. All right? Karen, what do you say? Yes. Art, what do you say? So Art's a no. Diane Duma. I better write this down. Karen is a yes. Art is a no. Diane Duma is a yes. Russ. So Russ is a no. Diane Rowland. Diane Rowland is a no. Robin Harris is a no. Trustee Pachakowski
No.
is a no. Trustee Nickel.
No.
And Magnon is a no. So it's defeated 7-2. So we now have on the table the indemnity bylaw as it's reading. Be it resolved, the board approved the first reading of the indemnity bylaw. So that's now, we can vote electronically for that, correct, Stacy? Is there any questions to that bylaw? Okay. Any other comments to the bylaw? I think we already have a mover and a seconder to that motion. So I'm going to call the question, and we can vote electronically. So since it didn't pass unanimously, we cannot go to the second reading, and the second reading will only come up next.
Wait a minute, yes, we can.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Don.
We can go to the second reading. Doesn't matter, you don't have to be passed unanimously to go to first and second reading.
Okay.
You have to be passed unanimously to go to the third reading. We can pass first and second.
Thank you, Don. Thank you. The Roberts rules, I still need to work on those Roberts rules. Lars, you're supposed to be helping me with those Roberts rules, right? I know, okay. All right, I'm just teasing you, Lars, just teasing you. So, we have a second reading of our indemnity bylaw. Be it resolved, the board approved the second reading of the indemnity bylaw. We have a motion to do it, motion by trustee Harris, seconded by trustee Rowland. Any questions to the Yes, go ahead, Karen.
I just want Kathy to explain that, like, so if this doesn't pass, then it goes 1, 2, 3 next time. It's like just...
So with any bylaw, it has to have 3 readings. And the only way that a bylaw can pass at the same meeting is if it's unanimous. If it's not unanimous, it has to be split between 2 meetings. And most places will do 1 and 2, and then wait for the next meeting to do the third. It doesn't go back to 1, 2, 3. Does that help? No, it will go 1, 2, and then we'll do 3 at the next meeting.
Anyone else? Okay, so now we're going to call the vote on the second reading of the bylaw, and we can vote electronically. Thank you, Stacy. so it passed unanimously, but the first reading did not, so we cannot have the third reading. All right? So, thank you for doing that for the number 1 and number 2, and we'll bring this back up the next time that we get together. Where am I? I am on committee reports. So, we have Policy Committee Chair Harris. Would you have anything to report?
We had a meeting last week. The minutes are included in there. We have a meeting scheduled for next week. I believe it'll be might be the 12th. It'll be the Thursday.
So you have a meeting for the Wednesday. Your minutes are in here. Is there anything is there any comments that you want to make from that? It's there. No. Okay. Any questions then for Trustee Harris with regard to the sorry, I got marbles again with the Policy Committee information from the Policy Committee? Okay, thanks. So we have the Policy Committee minutes, 8/11, it's for information. Notice of motion, sorry. Go ahead, notice of motion. Why don't you talk us through the notice of motion? We're not voting on anything. You're trying to screw me up, aren't you? Yeah, I got that. All right.
Yeah, so the Policy Committee is bringing a notice of motion to take out one word in Policy 3. It's noted in red there, where it says the board grants final approval of newly constructed schools and other division-owned buildings. We're removing the word own because the division does not own the buildings, the province does. So for clarification, it will read better if we remove that one word.
Questions from anyone? So that's a notice of motion, and that's giving you some information, and we'll bring up the motion, and if you want to discuss it certainly at that time, we certainly will. Thank you for doing that. So that is 8:10. 8:11 is the Policy Committee minutes that you said were here already, that you highlighted. Thank you. 8:12 is the Finance Committee. Trustee Nicol, anything from the Finance Committee? Don, anything to report from the Finance Committee?
Yeah, I mean myself. We had a meeting on September 23rd, and the next one will be on October 18th. Just to remind you that we're having, before the October 18th meeting, we're going to have an audit meeting, so that is open to, well, every Finance Committee is open to the rest of the board if they want, but we will be meeting with the Audit Committee before we submit our audit to the whole board on the 18th after 7 o'clock.
Thanks, Don. So right now we have a check register to pass. So 8:14 is be it resolved the board received the June 2022 check register with a total amount of checks issued at $6,573,719.82, reviewed on September 23rd, 2022 by the Finance Committee for information as submitted. Don, are you moving this motion?
Yes, I am.
Okay, moved by Trustee Nicol, seconded by Trustee Rowland. Comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll vote. And it passed 9-0, thank you. 8:15, be it resolved that the board received the July 2022 check register with a total amount of checks issued at $2,965,307.90, reviewed on September 23rd by the Finance Committee for information as required. Moved by Trustee Nicol, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Seconded by Trustee Rowland. Any comments? Hearing none, we'll vote. Passed 9-0, thank you. 8:16, it's a check register. Be it resolved, the board received the August 2022 check register with a total amount of checks issued at $2,974,733.86, reviewed on September 23rd by the Finance Committee for information. Moved by Trustee Nichol, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Seconded by Trustee Rowland. Any comments? Thank you. We'll vote. And you passed 9-0. Thank you for doing that. Education Foundation Committee. Do we have any other information, Jody, for that from that committee?
No, not at this time. I was scheduled to have a meeting or a phone conversation with Fillmore Riley on Monday. Unfortunately, I was not available, so we've rescheduled the conversation to a later date.
Thank you. Professional development from trustees. There's nothing to report. Divisional financial summary report. So we do have a report there. Dawn, that is your finance committee. It is the report that we've put together for information, of summary as of June 30th. Is there any comments or questions from that report? Dawn, is there anything to add from that report? Sorry, Karen. Trustee Inslee, go ahead.
Can somebody just clarify to me exactly how much surplus we have right now? I'm just reading down the report with regard to, sorry.
The overall surplus that's sitting in accumulated surplus will be about probably about 1-2 million.
Or did you want to go ahead and spend 1.2 million on something? No, I'm just kidding, you, Karen.
That would be nice. No, it's just that I asked a couple of weeks ago how much surplus that we had, and it wasn't that number. That was all. So
talk with Jody individually, and Jody can get you that information, what the exact figure is. We have board correspondence. Go ahead, Don.
Can I just mention something? Remember, this is the financial summary of June the 30th, and it's not the auditor statement. So when you audit, I've never seen a draft financial statement in June the 30th and the auditor statement to be exactly the same. There's always going to be some changes. So there will probably be some, once you get the audit statement in October the 18th, it might be different from here.
Thanks, Don. We are at, where are we? Sorry about this. 11-1 chairperson correspondence. Thank you note from the board from Judy on September 2022. You have that attached. We have some nice to know information in 12-1 and 12-2. Certainly about Trust Sunrise trustees and information from the Clipper. We have upcoming meetings that are here. We do have, for new trustees that are successful, a reminder, October 29th is a trustee orientation. It's here from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock at the Sunrise Education Center. We do not have any press releases. Jody, do we have any questions from the public?
No questions from the public.
Evelyn, you're our only public here. Do you have any questions? No? Okay. Come on, Evelyn, we're just trying to give you some airtime there. You're sitting here. Yeah, okay. Trustee Duma?
I guess I'm just a bit, I mentioned it before, but I will mention it here, just a bit of concern if you look at the agenda that it doesn't include all of the letters that have come through emails, releases, just that our minutes do not reflect the information that we receive as a board. And I'm just wondering, how do we transfer the information that comes through our emails, whether it's MSBA, CAPSUL, all of the correspondence that we get, that we don't have it listed, and because it's not on the agenda, it then ends up not going into our minutes. So there's a huge, vast amount of information, considering that we put a lot of money into MSBA. We've got e-news bulletins, we've got tons of information that is for the public, and we have information even about upcoming motions that the boards can be discussing for November the 4th. We've had a survey that came in one of their letters, so all this information never gets to the public, and it's not included in our minutes, which is why I continue to vote against the minutes, because I don't think that they truly reflect all the information that this board gets that the public should be aware of. So my big question is, how do we get this into here?
So that could be a responsibility that I take on, because I do everything that comes to me from MSBA, I forward on to trustees as a group. Me getting that to Stacy, and Stacy getting that in here. So how about if we address that? We'll address that agenda setting, and we'll put it on here for a topic for the next time that we get together, so that we can go ahead and solve that. Thanks, Diane.
So just to add on to that, like I'm reminded of here the new funding grants, the elder funding, the recovery learning funding, and those came in letters.
Yes.
That the public would be loving to see what kind of money we were getting from the province, and yet we don't have any of that record in here. So I noticed too, because I went through the emails to see who is the distribution list, and I think there is an issue with not getting it to our secretary.
So I'm the one that's sending it off to, it is coming to me, and I am sending it off to trustees, and about getting it then to Stacy as to whatever, that's something I can do. Thank you. No questions from the public. We don't need to move into in-camera. I think that that means that we're done. Is that right?
John, Nicole?
Okay, we're done. So adjournment. Have a good one. Drive home safely.